A nest box has become the centre of a series of wildlife dramas. At the turn of the new year, I noticed a pair of kestrels coming and going from one of the nest boxes. They were looking for a place to nest, and the perfect nest site for them needs to be dry inside. But the kestrels aren't the only one to think this hollow would be the perfect place to raise their young. At night, tawny owls were also looking into the box. And then in February, a grey squirrel decides to make a nest in there called a dray. When the tawny owl decides to take another look in the hollow, it's surprised to see it occupied, and it's kicked out by the squirrel. Under the cover of darkness, the tawny owl comes back to take its revenge and attacks the squirrel, and I didn't see the squirrel again after that night. With the squirrel now out of the picture, I cleaned the nest site out. Before too long, I was pleased to see the male and female kestrel back and moving in. They would now need to defend their new nest. The first challenger is a jackdaw. The female sees it off. Watch how she braces her wings to lash out with her talons. Kestrels don't carry nesting material, but instead make a simple nest scrape. She settles into her new nest in preparation to lay. Kestrel pairs mate for life, and it's not long until an egg appears. It was really exciting to see on the 30th of March the female laid her first egg, but she was going to have a battle on her hands to protect it. That night the tawny owl was back, and a fierce battle ensued. The tawny owl is brutal, but the kestrel holds her own and retaliates. She's seen off this challenger, but she still needs to defend her clutch of eggs. Both the female and the male take their turns in brooding the eggs. The kestrel lays 2 more eggs, but these attacks are making her really anxious. I'm worried she's going to abandon this nest because she keeps leaving the eggs unguarded. I even noticed the pair prospecting other nest sites. The male calls the female in to inspect the nest. The female enters the nest and even begins scraping this new nest site. While she's away, a jackdaw comes in, and it jabs into one of the eggs and starts eating the contents inside. This is really hard to watch. Before the jackdaw can do any more damage, it's startled by the returning male. He arrives back to find one of the eggs destroyed. He looks down at the broken egg before carrying it outside. Thankfully, the female returns back and lays another egg later that day. But soon events took a dramatic turn. The Tawny was back for another raid. Sadly, during this encounter, another egg was broken. Tawny owls often attack other birds of prey as part of territorial disputes, and these are real bruisers and they want to rule the valley. Tawny owl dragged her out of the nest and I was really worried the eggs might get cold. Thankfully, she came back and settled down to incubating the eggs again. kestrel pair share incubation and swap over regularly and have a quick catch up while they're doing it. I'm delighted to tell you after a month's incubation the hatching process has started. Right up to hatching, both male and female share incubation, and I saw the female refusing to move when the male came in one day, and I saw this as a sign that hatching was starting. Watch the female, she's hunkered down low, calling. They exchange a few calls together and the male then retreats, and it's nearly always the female that takes charge of the hatching process. After a month's incubation we got a glimpse of the first chick. Its down is still wet and its eyes are barely opened. The female leaves the nest and returns with a vole. And she calls out to the chick, and remarkably this small chick can already respond. With its mouth gaping open, it eats some tiny morsels of food, but it doesn't quite manage the vole's foot. It's really important she keeps this new chick warm, so she soon returns to incubating. The male comes in and sees the chick for the first time, and is all talons and fingers and thumbs almost to start off with. But he shuffles down and gets incubating the chick. It's quite sweet watching this chick sleeping. Its head resting on an egg, but the surface of the egg is so slippy its head keeps slipping off the side. The female's been especially careful with her talons. She doesn't want to harm the chick while she broods. I'm pleased to see the second chick hatch the following morning. An hour later and a third chick hatches, and you can clearly see the difference in between the newborn chick and the chick that's nearly a day old. Next, the fourth chick hatches, and you can see the female eating some of the eggshell to take back some of the nutrients. It's difficult to count the chicks now, it's a mass of fluff and shells. She takes half a vole from the cache and feeds each chick individually. And even though some of them are quite weak, she's very patient, and this is a great moment to see. The chicks become quite sleepy at the end of the feed, and she soon settles down to brood them. It's so important she keeps them warm at this stage. The following day, egg number 5 hatches, and this is absolutely great to see, all 5 chicks successfully hatched. It's been great to see these tiny 5 kestrel chicks being brought up so well by the Fotherdale pair of kestrels. The female's carefully brooding them at these early stages, and when she's off the nest for the short periods of time, they tessellate really carefully together to stay warm. The male and female have 2 very distinct roles. The male's job is to hunt and bring in as much food as possible, and the female's role is to care for the chicks and feed them very carefully. When the female's feeding the chicks, it's a very orderly process. The chicks are almost lined up and individually tit-bit fed by the female with small morsels of food. If the piece is too big, she eats it herself, and the rest of the prey is shared equally between the chicks. After the chicks are fed, I love the moment she goes back to brooding them. She ruffles her feathers and snuggles down on them. The prey here that the kestrels are bringing in is mainly small rodents, but the male will never pass an opportunity of catching something else, like a small rat. And you can tell this is a young rat by the thickness of its tail and the size of its feet. A meal like this will last for several feeds, and when she's finished feeding them, she caches the remaining prey in the corner of the nest, like a larder. The female had a lot of conflict with jackdaws and tawny owls while she was on eggs, and now she's got these precious chicks, she's extra vigilant. At night the tawny owls are still around, so the female needs to be still on guard. When the chicks are just 4 days old, you can visibly see how much they've grown. They're looking much more alert and sitting more upright and following the movements of the female, and they look clearly hungry. At 5 days old, the chicks can go for longer periods of time without the female needing to brood them. They're getting so big now, she's struggling to fit them underneath her. And there's been some really unusual prey items brought in. One day I saw them bring in a common lizard, and this would be a really protein-packed meal. And another time, the female brings in an adult male blackbird, and the feathers just carpet the nest. And soon the chicks are taking in bigger pieces of food and even squabbling over it. By 1 week old, the chicks are getting too big to brood, and she has to splay her wings to cover them, and one night she actually lost her balance and fell over the front of them. Within a few weeks, the kestrel chicks are walking around the nest and flapping their wings to develop their muscles. As their feathers start to come through, they spend a lot of time preening. They remove the down with their beaks, and as they flap their wings, clouds of fluff fill the air. And with the chicks starting to peer out of the nest site, I can get my first glimpses of them, which aren't just on the TV screen. I can see them peering out of the hollow, and they're going to spend more and more time looking out at the outside world, balancing on the edge, before they finally take their first flights. And there one goes. There's so many dramas unfolding in the countryside, and it's amazing to watch the lengths those kestrels go to raise their chicks, and it's great to know that we've got another generation of kestrel chicks in the valley.